Going to go ahead and say good afternoon to everybody who's getting on right now. It's about 1 minute to 1. I am going to, just as a reminder, I know a lot of people are asking to record the meeting. I will be recording the meeting and sending it out to everyone who has either requested the request for qualification, downloaded it, or has RSVP'd in some way to this Zoom meeting. So I will be sending that out after the fact. I'm going to wait a few more minutes, see how many more people we get on. We had just under 100 who had stated that they were probably going to attend. So we'll wait just another minute or two before we get started.
Yeah, sir. Over there.
I'm also going to start muting people if I start hearing sounds coming from them. So if you all could, when you get on, please go ahead and mute because we are going to have a lot of people. All right. I'm sure there's going to be a few more that are going to join, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for your interest in Great Rivers Greenway's request for qualifications for our pre-qualification list. This pre-qualification list for many of you is something that you're very familiar with. There's quite a few people also on here who might not know about it. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to be going through a presentation. Some of it is going to be just a repeat for many of you who have been working with us for a number of years. But we're going to go ahead and go through the various slides. And in going through those slides, I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are. I'm going to then go into a little bit of information regarding the RFQ. Also, a little bit of explanation. Not everybody understands what it means to be on the pre-qualification list. So I will make sure to go through a little bit of that in the process. If we have any time for questions, I will attempt to answer some of those questions. And if not, as a reminder and as part of the PowerPoint, I'm going to go through the conversation with you all about the timeline and how to ask additional questions. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with these slides. So hold on just a moment. So again, welcome all. My name is Mara Perry. I'm a Senior Project Manager for Planning here at Great Rivers Greenway. This year, I had offered to take this little project on. We do it every 3 years. This is a update to our pre-qualification list. Great Rivers Greenway, this is us. We are a regional parks and trails district. We encompass St. Charles County, St. Louis County, and the city of St. Louis. This entire area, which you can see on the map in yellow. The intent and the mission for us is to create a legacy of greenways for future generations to enjoy. We are also the partner for the City Arch River and the Gateway Arch National Park, the transformation and the projects that have been done most recently along the Arch grounds and in downtown. And our intent is to be the steward of our taxpayers' regional investment into this region. Our mission, Great Rivers Greenway mission, is to make St. Louis region a more vibrant place to live, work, and play by developing a regional network of greenways. We know that there are many benefits to the greenways. In fact, we are currently working on some projects to try to measure even better the benefits of our greenways, looking at how it impacts the health of the residents in our community, how it can help with different forms of transportation, and overall looking at community and conservation of our area. Our overall vision is to create a dynamic network of all these greenways, connecting them to our various communities. It's very important to us to strengthen the social, economic, and environmental well-being of the region. We partner with multiple various smaller communities within each of these areas within the county and the city. We also partner with other various transportation organizations, St. Louis County Department of Highways and Transportation. We partner with St. Louis City and their departments. We also work with MoDOT, with Ameren, with the railroads. All of these areas are helping us to build this greenway network. It covers 1,200 square miles. That overall area is equal to the size of the state of Rhode Island. Right now, we have, and this is our updated number, 140 miles and counting of built trails within a total of 18 greenways in the region. These 18 greenways are quite active, and right now we actually have sections that are under construction in a number of these various greenways. I have a little highlight here to talk about some of the ones that we're immediately starting on with some construction coming the end of this year and into the beginning of next year. We have work under construction on the Brickline Greenway in downtown. They will be starting some work soon on the Hodemont Greenway and St. Vincent Greenway, as well as Maylene. And then we do have some new work that's starting along the Deer Creek Greenway. That one is going through 2 different municipalities and going into then the city of St. Louis. For those that don't know where our revenue comes from, we have a regional sales tax, and that revenue stream comes from 2 different propositions that were approved by votes. The first one was in 2000, which is Prop C. That Prop C is 1/10 of 1 cent sales tax, and that is for both St. Charles County, St. Louis County, as well as the city of St. Louis. We also have Prop P, which was approved in 2013. That one was at 3/16 of 1 cent sales tax. That one, it goes through 2033, where a new vote will be taken. If that vote does pass in the St. Louis County and St. Louis City, it will then also be in perpetuity, like the Prop C 1/10 sales tax. You can see a little bit of where we get some of our money from. There are the St. Louis County Parks and Municipal Grants that you can see they get a certain portion coming from Prop C and Prop P. St. Louis City gets theirs. Prop C, St. Charles County and Municipal Parks also get funding. And then the bottom part of that pie chart is the money that we receive from Prop P and Prop C. Our organization is made up of a structure of a series of teams. We have our build team, which is made up of a number of the project managers, planners, and our community engagement. We have our promote team, which works on promoting both the greenways as we are starting to look at scheduling public meetings, working with the community on our early thoughts about where to put greenways. They then continue promoting the greenway as we are starting to get under construction if there's a closure on a particular greenway. And then they continue to promote us through special events and different special places that you can go, or educational elements that you can do within each of the greenways. Those are done in the various greenways and sometimes in concert with the various communities where the greenways are located. We also have a sustain team. The sustain team works on ensuring that if there are repairs that need to be made to areas that we are still maintaining, or that there are questions or concerns on how to maintain the greenways with the various smaller communities and through their operations and maintenance agreements, they work with them on the sustainability of the overall greenway system. We also have administration and finance, and we have our Great Rivers Greenway Foundation. I also like to be very clear that the engagement, although we also have another RFQ that goes out for engagement firms, we do have 3 full-time staff here at GRG as part of the build team who work on engagement. We feel it's very important for the life cycle of the Greenway project to start and continue that ongoing community engagement from the early planning through the design and construction, and then as it continues into the maintenance of that greenway and the programming of that greenway. So it's very important to us. I know many firms do have some community engagement built into their firms, but in addition, we have an entire approved list of pre-qualified firms to do community engagement, as well as have our staff internally that also work on this. So one of the things I try to remind people of is that because we are working on so many projects and we're trying to make a priority to be continually building while still moving back into the maintenance of many of these greenway systems, we typically have a process that we work through where we will initially hire someone off of our pre-qualified list to start with the planning of a greenway. This is the typical start of a firm being hired off of the pre-qualified list. In the planning stage, we start with pre-planning, early engagement, coordination with our partners. We look at greenway master planning, alignment studies, and implementation of a strategy or some sort of phasing. After that, if that firm has worked out well, that they're moving forward through this, we can expand upon that first contract to go into an amendment of the original contract into a design phase. So that design phase can go into pre-design, looking at site control, NEPA, any grant applications that might be needed. Those design concepts go all the way through final construction documents. We look at the engineering, the permitting, the PS&E. During this design phase, many times we might have a project that could go on hold for one reason or another. So occasionally we will have a project that comes in under or off of the pre-qualification list and goes straight into design if we had potentially put a project on hold a number of years ago and already had drawings to a certain level. Not very often, but it does happen sometimes. And then the third and final is going into the phase of build, going into bidding, going into construction, ensuring, again, this phase can be an extension, a new amendment to the contract, to the firm that was originally hired from the early planning stages, and then all the way up through build. When we get into build, we're working with operations and maintenance with the community. We're looking at different elements of how to establish the landscape and looking at post-construction and how to make sure that we document all of our assets into our GIS system and into our means of being able to manage all of those assets, both with our partners and also to understand them overall for our systems. So when we are working with this, we end up working each year by only adding a couple projects at a time. What we want to do is we want to start looking at the idea that we might start in a pre-plan or we're planning Greenway A, for example. Greenway A might then go into in year 2 a design or a pre-design while we start into the planning of the next Greenway, Greenway B. We then would continue the projects, maybe have smaller projects broken out of a particular greenway as we continue to build on this, so that by the time we get to a certain year, usually around year 4, sometimes year 5, when we're starting to build a particular project, we have other projects in different phases of design. So we might be at a certain point in time finishing up one build project and starting on another build project. The idea is that over these various years, we are trying to phase all of these in, which means that we might not have a very large number of projects in any given year that are coming in new in the design stage. Last year, because we'd taken on a number of new staff, we did take on 10 new projects in the early planning stages. It was a lot, and we are trying really hard to get all of those 10 as we get this far into the year into a kickoff and a start. But we did have quite a number last year. And once we get through all of this, we hope that what we would have is that we have a series of staggered construction as we're building various projects. This year, because of the number of project managers that we have, we did have 3 or 4 that have just gone to a bidding stage. So even though it just shows sort of like one in each of these years, we do usually have 3 or 4 in each of these years. So sometimes 3 or 4 new design projects come up is in our budget for each of the years. So in terms of the pre-qualified list and the request for qualifications, all of you were invited because you did download a copy of our RFQ. That RFQ does have a list of submittal requirements. These submittal requirements, which I have here on the slide, include a series of documents. And the reminder to all of you is that this submittal is what is going to be used by our project managers when they're making determinations on who they would like to invite to an invitation to interview. So adding a letter of interest, giving an overview of your firm, having a description of your experience. Again, there's more information in the request for qualifications that goes into these in more details, but providing a description of what your experience is in the types of projects that are similar to the projects that we build. Looking at your overall approach to QA/QC. We asked for 3 recent projects within the last 5 years. For those of you that were on the pre-qualification list before, this might be something that you would like to update because you might have done the pre-qualification 3 years ago, and now some of those projects are much older. And adding in new recent projects would be really critical to update what your firm can do and to show projects that are similar to the types of projects that we are going to be looking to hire for. We ask for hourly rates, the firm's ownership structure, and there's a series of disclosures. So all of those are there in that submittal. That submittal will become a document that stays here and is in a file, a digital file for the various project managers to be able to review. So as a reminder, if you were previously on our request for qualification list for the last 3-year time frame, we are requesting that you probably will, many of you will be able to just simply update your past submittal. You would want to add any more recent projects that are within the last 5 years. You'll want to update any staff resumes. We'll ask you to update professional fields. In the last 3-year time frame, we did only have 1 point of contact. And when we were renewing for this year, we found that we had a number of people that had retired or were no longer with particular firms. So we are going to ask that you have 2 points of contact that will be our points of contact to keep on our list. We have a little bit of room for a 3rd contact if it's really critical for a larger firm that might have multiple locations, but we'd ask that you keep it to less than 3. There are also a series of professional fields. The fields that were available are listed on the request for qualifications. Those are the primary fields that we are looking for. And as a reminder, this pre-qualification list is supposed to be for firms that would be the lead firm on a project. You may still want to team up with other firms, but at this point in time, we're just looking for information on you as your particular firm as a lead firm on a project. When you get to a certain point where we will ask you to team up with others, you will be able to supplement. So you want to ensure that the professional fields that you've selected are the ones that you have staff that are able to accomplish the various projects, those particular fields. If there are going to be at some point that we feel that you do need to match up with someone else, we understand that you will be adding people to your team. So again, ensure that it's just the fields that you have within your particular firm. With this request for qualifications, we typically do a 20-minute interview. That interview is intended to give our staff a short overview of the firm, introduce us to your staff, give us a little brief on some of the applicable projects. As a reminder, this is just to put you on this list for pre-qualified firms. When you get to the point that you're invited to interview for a particular project, that is when we do much more intensive interviews that are very specific to the project that we're asking you to interview for. Um, we do try to make sure it's 20 minutes in length, and we try to leave a few minutes for some questions and answers, but we try to cap it at 30 minutes total. We are intending for many of the firms that have been on the pre-qualification list, have worked with us before, we will probably say that we do not need to interview you at this time, if we determine that we are fine with just putting you straight onto the pre-qualification list. Some firms that were previously on our list may still wish to interview with us. You can let us know that if you'd like to interview with us, it may be that you have added some professional fields that your firm has added, had been landscape architecture, and you've added planning, or you have added a survey arm. You also may have a whole group of new staff that have been added on, and you would like to do that interview. We are again trying to limit the number of interviews. Our pre-qualification list had approximately 80 firms on it when we finished out this last 3-year time frame. So we are not intending to interview every single firm, but we are intending to interview firms that either are brand new to us or have some major changes in their particular qualifications. I wanted to put this slide in so we could talk a little bit about, I think there's been some confusion where people don't completely understand how we take things from the pre-qualified list and when we get to the point where we interview. So this pre-qualified firm list is something that we keep in our office in a digital form. We keep that full PDF of your request for qualifications that you've turned in that we have approved. It's supposed to include the various firm fields of professional fields of planning, landscape architecture, engineering, and surveying. From that list, each of our project managers, when they are assigned a new project for a particular year, goes through that list and looks at the various firms that have the qualifications for that particular type of project. We understand this might not include things like a floodplain study or specific for bridges and other things like that. We understand that your team you might want to form a team and add some additional specialties for some of those. But we will look at the sample projects and some of the other description to help make some determinations on which firms we would like to bring in for a particular project interview. We usually bring in 3 to 4 firms for an invitation to interview, and we do that based on any new projects that we've added each budget year. So for example, this new year for 2026 coming up, we're currently starting to narrow down which projects are going to be new for that new year. It may not be as many projects as we've done in a past year. Last year we did 10. Last year we also tried something new. We're not sure whether we're going to do it again or not, but we had 10 projects and we invited 10 firms in, and we did all of the interviews at the same time and then made a determination on which projects would be assigned to which firms. And in some cases, partnered firms together, making one a prime and one a sub and vice versa. We're not sure if we're going to necessarily do that again, but it did save us from having, I think, 40 interviews versus having 10 interviews. And we had a lot to do that year. Once we send out an invitation to interview, we ask you whether you will be willing to interview with us. And we ask within a certain time frame for you to say yes or no. We then request that you form your teams. So we'll tell you which project you're interviewing for so that you can make a determination on what other subs you might need for that particular project. We then schedule our interviews here at GRG with applicable staff and many times with the partners that are going to be the partners on those particular projects, whether it's with a particular municipality or with the county. Once we've selected the firms, we work into negotiating a contract, and that contract focuses first on that first phase of planning, or if it was a project that had been on hold for a while and needs to go straight to design, on design. So as we go through that, that's our typical invitation to interview. We will not be posting any sort of additional RFPs or anything else on the website. Once you're on this pre-qualified list, we will be picking firms off of that pre-qualified list. Those that do get approved for this particular submittal that's coming up this year will be put on the list for a 3-year time frame. If by some chance you are not wanting to apply at this time, you are able to apply next year when we would add people on, but they will only go on for a 2-year time frame. We will also do it again the year after, and they will go on for a 1-year time frame. There are some firms that were on the list that we just approved this last year. They've only been on for 1 year. Everyone does need to renew in order to be on for this next 3-year list. Those who have most recently applied, you may not need to do very much at all in terms of updating your previous request for qualification. Time frame and procurement schedule. We did issue this invitation to interview on September 8th. For those of you that were on the last pre-qualified list, I did send an email out to everyone that we had an email for. That's when we found that we had a few people who were gone or retired, and we tried to reach out to those firms and get correct contacts. This Zoom presentation, which is being held today, I'm hoping to sort of finalize this in the first 30 minutes, leaving us with about 30 minutes for additional questions. If you aren't able to ask a question at this time, we will continue taking questions through Friday, September 26th. You need to email the questions to my email address, and then we will be sending out the response to every question, both the questions that I will be answering right now if I am able, as well as any others that I might have to look up some information or talk with someone else. We will be sending all of the questions and those answers and responses out to every single firm, whether they attended this Zoom meeting or not. The submittal due date is Monday, October 13th. You will find the rest of the information in the RFQ on how to submit. We will be holding interviews right now. We have a very, very wide window of time frame for interviews. We're going to try to hold those interviews anytime between October 27th and November 19th. Again, we're trying to make them no more than 30 minutes total. So depending on how many we have to do, we will probably break them out into a number of different days and times. We will work with everyone's schedules because we would like to have as many people as possible from your firm be able to attend. So we will work with scheduling those out. After we've finished all those interviews and after we've made the determination on all the firms that we want to add to the list, our intent is to get it to the Tuesday, December 9th Board of Directors board meeting. It will be an agenda item that they will vote on to add everybody onto the list. All of those firms that are approved for the pre-qualified list will be added to that list starting on January 1st of 2026, and they will stay on there for a total of 3 years. If there is a particular change, let's say a firm has taken on something new, many times we ask that you wait until the next year submittal to change or add additional fields if you have added a particular professional field to your firm. In most cases, we will then update you and add you without another interview needed in that next year. I'm going to end it at this point. There's a number of you on. If you want to go ahead and maybe raise a hand so that we're not all trying to jump on with any questions at the same time. And I'll try to call out names of those who are wishing to ask any questions. Or the presentation was thorough enough that no one has any questions. Okay. Again, thank you all for your interest.
There's one in the chat that I noticed.
Oh, sorry, I'm not seeing the chat over here. Oh, there we go. It says, I noticed environmental services are not included as a category in this RFQ. We are not currently doing environmental services as a separate category. We typically would find that people hire a sub consultant for environmental services. I will probably try to look at whether staff feels that we need to add that as an additional category to make it clear on which firms already have those in-house. But for now, I would ask that you just put that in your request for qualifications, that you also have that additional service. The next one is, what about environmental graphics, branding, and website design? Typically, environmental graphics, branding, website is done through our promote team. So this particular request for qualifications is focused on our planning and architectural and landscape design services and engineering for the Greenway. Again, many people have that already within their firm and use that, but we already have brand standards that we provide. If we were going to do any update for website design for our website, we would go out with a separate request for qualifications. Sorry, Todd, did you want to add?
Sorry, just wanted to get back to the previous question because there is, because we don't work on our sustain department actually does have an environmental services RFQ that I think they're actually working on and going out here relatively soon. So that's handled by our sustain department, which is our conservation operations and maintenance department. So it will be posted on our website and distributed probably very similar to how Mara handled it for our side. It's just they've got their own separate process. So there is something coming. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
And also as a clarification for, there will be an RFQ going out for the engagement services. I believe that will be renewing next year, if I remember correctly. So that one, if it is something that you're also interested in, that one will go out later. For the 3 project examples, is there a particular market or sector that we would like to see? Master planning, sports, recreational, educational, corporate projects. What I would say is that go ahead and look at the projects that we have, which are Greenway projects. And the focus would be on Greenway. So I would say to narrow down would be other types of trail systems, Greenway systems, other means of shared use paths versus sports or recreation facilities, or if it is a corporate project that has a greenway that goes through it, that would be a great example. Anyone else want to put any questions in the chat? Okay. All right. Well, we finished quicker than anticipated. We're at just 32 minutes. As a reminder, I'm going to go back to this slide here has both my phone number as well as my email address. And then in addition, as a reminder, our schedule shows that you can send additional questions to me by this Friday, September 26th. And I will answer any and all of those questions in a written format and send it out to everyone who has downloaded the request for qualifications. Let me see. Lots of thank yous. Thank you again to everyone who attended, and have a great day.